Hey guys, so yesterday we talked about different sensory receptors, focusing mostly on the ones on like your skin, nose, and mouth. But we did talk about the fact that in the eye you have photoreceptors. Today we're going to be going much more in depth into how the eye actually works. So for this lesson on the eye, we're going to be talking briefly about the difference between monoscopic and stereoscopic vision. Then we're going to go into the different layers of the eye. You need to know all of the different structures of the eye and how they work. You also need to know how impulses are transmitted from the photoreceptors in the eye to the central nervous system and how the brain then interprets that information. So first, the difference between stereoscopic and monoscopic vision. So stereoscopic vision is also called binocular vision because it's like where binoculars are, that's where your eyes are. It has two eyes with overlapping fields of vision. The eyes are located at the front of the head. It does mean that your field of vision is fairly narrow, which just means like you don't have a lot of peripheral vision. And by overlapping fields of vision, it means like if you cover one eye and then cover the other eye, there are things that you can see in front of you with both eyes. So I can see, you know, all of the rows of desks in front of me if I cover this eye, and if I cover this eye, I can still see 3 of those rows of desks. So those 3 rows of desks are in my overlapping field of vision. The downside is obviously the lack of peripheral vision. I can only see things that are in like this area and can't see things like behind me. The benefit of this though is that with those overlapping fields of vision, you then have depth perception. So you can see how far something is away from you and actually like be able to grab it. So this type of vision is usually found in predator species where they have to like judge how far away the prey is and like, is it close enough for me to like lunge out and grab it right now and stuff like that. Monoscopic vision is usually when the eyes are on either side of the head, like one on either side of the head. It means that you don't have any overlapping field of vision. Like if they covered one eye, the stuff that they see with their other eye would not be anything that they see with the covered eye. The downside, lack of depth perception. So animals with that type of vision don't have depth perception. However, they do have a much larger field of vision because their field of vision doesn't overlap. So this is usually found in prey species that need to be able to detect predators coming. So for prey, it's more important to know if there's a predator there rather than how far away the predator is. If the predator is there, they want to run away regardless of how far away the predator is. So it's more important for them to detect the predator than have depth perception. Okay, the human eye is a hollow sphere which is filled with fluid and is about 2.5 centimeters in diameter. And the whole job of the eye is to convert incoming light signals into action potentials that get sent out the optic nerve to the brain. The eye is made up of 3 different layers. The outer layer is called the sclera, the middle layer is called the choroid layer, and then the innermost layer is the retina. So the sclera is the outermost layer of the eye. Most of the sclera is made up of a protective layer, which is made of white connective tissue. When you like look at someone's eyes and you see the white part of the eye, that is the sclera, that white connective tissue. And one of the big jobs of the sclera is to just maintain the shape of the eye. It also includes the cornea, which is the transparent bulge at the front of the eye that you can like see if you're looking like sideways at someone's eye. And the whole job of the cornea is to bend light towards the pupil, towards the opening in the eye. The cornea does not have blood vessels because then the blood vessels would be in your vision and you would see these blood vessels every time you look out. So instead, the cornea gets oxygenated by the aqueous humor. So the aqueous humor is transparent fluid that is tucked in behind the cornea. It contains dissolved gases as well as some nutrients in order to keep the cornea going. Then the middle layer is the choroid layer. It contains all of the blood vessels that supply blood to the retina. It also includes the iris, which is the colored area at the front of the eye. The job of the iris is to control the amount of light coming into the inner part of the eye. And it does that by either contracting to make the pupil smaller and let less light in, or dilating in order to make the pupil larger and allow more light in. And then behind the iris, you have the lens, which is a flexible, slightly yellow solid. It helps to block UV rays. It also bends light towards the back of the eye. So yeah, the retina is at the back of the eye. The light is going to be bent to what's called the fovea centralis. It's like the prime location for sight on the back of the eye. So the lens is going to bend all of the light that comes through the pupil towards that spot on the retina. The ciliary muscles are muscles that are attached to your lens, and they actually control the shape of your lens. So the shape of your lens determines whether you're focusing on something up close or far away. And so the ciliary muscles are essentially what allows you to do that, to focus on different distances. And they do that by either like contracting or flattening the lens. So when you're trying to focus on things that are really far away, the ciliary muscles are going to relax, the lens kind of flattens out. When you're trying to focus on things that are closer to you, like when you're reading, then the ciliary muscles contract and it makes the lens more rounded. And then the retina is the innermost layer of the eye. It is made up of 4 different types of cells. You have the pigmented epithelium, the light-sensitive cells, the bipolar cells, and then the optic nerve cells. The light-sensitive cells are also called the photoreceptors. Essentially, they are stimulated by light, and when they're stimulated, they generate an action potential and send out their impulse. The impulse then goes from the light-sensitive cells to the bipolar cells, which then pass that signal on to the cells in the optic nerve. You have 2 different types of photoreceptors in your eye. You have the rods and the cones. The rods are really there to help you see when it's not super bright. So when it's fairly dark, when there's low light levels, that is where your rods are able to still pick up on different signals. Your cones are responsible for your color vision. You have 3 different types of cones. Each one is sensitive to a different wavelength of color. So you have red, green, and blue sensitive cones in your eye. And then if you have a combination of those cones that are stimulated, you can see colors other than just red, green, and blue. If all 3 of those cones are stimulated equally, then you will just see white light. A colorblind person is usually lacking either the red or green cones. So yeah, this is how we get kind of our different colors. So we have the red, blue, and green cones. If all of them are stimulated, you get the white light. If you just have like the red and the green stimulated, you get yellow light. So yeah, rods, those are the ones that are for low light conditions. Cones, those are your color vision. And then the fovea centralis is a little tiny indent at the back of the eye, right kind of in the center of the retina. And here is where we find a really high concentration of rods and cones. Cones mostly packed right into the fovea centralis, rods surrounding the fovea centralis, and this is where your vision will be sharpest. So that is why your lens is trying to focus the light right on your fovea centralis so you can see more clearly. So this is just kind of what the eye looks like from side on. So you can see the sclera, the white part around the outside. This bulge at the front here is the cornea. Right in underneath that, you would have the aqueous humor, that fluid. Then this colored part is the iris, which constricts or dilates the pupil, which is just that hole. And then you have the lens behind that. That is going to direct light towards, at the back here, the fovea centralis, this little indent right here. This kind of like purpley layer in here, that's the middle layer, the choroid layer. And then this like pink peachy colored layer is the retina. And then this is the optic nerve right here. And where the optic nerve connects to the retina, there's actually no photoreceptors there because it's just optic nerve. And so you do have a little blind spot right there. Okay, so the pigmented epithelium is the layer of cells that make up the like majority of the retina. It's kind of like the base layer of the retina. And then the rods and cones actually stick like horizontally into the pigmented epithelium. Again, those rods and cones, when they're stimulated, they're going to send off their impulse to the bipolar cells, which then move the signal along to the optic nerve cells. The optic nerve is then going to carry that information to the central nervous system. The optic nerve cells are made of ganglion cells, so sometimes you just see them referred to as ganglion cells, but optic nerve cells and ganglion cells are kind of used interchangeably. The optic nerve does attach to the retina at the back of the eye, and like I said, there's no rods and cones there, so it is a little blind spot. So this is just kind of what this would look like. So this would be a person that is facing this direction. So this is the back of their eye. This would be the main layer of the retina at the back of their eye. So the pigmented epithelium is there. The rods and cones are sticking into it vertically. The light is going to come in. It is going come in through the cornea, which bends the light towards the pupil. Then it's going to hit the lens, that bends the light towards the fovea centralis. So the light's going to come in, it's going to hit these rods and cones, those photoreceptors. They're going to be stimulated by the light, have an action potential. They will send off that impulse to the bipolar cells and then to the ganglion cells of the optic nerve, where it then gets sent to the brain. When it gets into the brain, it goes through the thalamus, because remember, the thalamus is like the traffic cop. It directs incoming signals where to go. And then from there, it's going to be interpreted by the visual cortex of the brain. Inside of the eye, you do have this big chamber in there that's actually filled with what's called the vitreous humor, which is a jelly-like substance that also helps the eye contain its shape, so it doesn't just like flatten in on itself. And as the light rays pass through it, it is only slightly cloudy, so the light can just kind of go right through to the back of the eye where the retina is. Again, this is just another image of the eye. So the white outer layer is our sclera. At the front here, this bulge, like the outer layer of the bulge is the cornea. Behind that, the fluid-filled area is the aqueous humor, which again just supplies oxygen and nutrients to the cornea. The light that's coming in is going to be bent by the cornea so that it goes through the pupil, which is the opening right here. Whoopsies. The iris, you can just kind of see right here and right here. The iris controls how much light is going into the eye by controlling the size of the pupil. Then the light is going to hit the lens. The lens bends the light towards the fovea centralis, which is the little divot at the back of the eye. And these ciliary muscles, which are right here and here on either side, are going to control the shape of the lens. This whole area back here is filled with that jelly-like substance, which is the vitreous humor. This reddish layer in here is the choroid layer. It supplies blood to the retina, which is this yellow layer on the inside here. That retina is made up of the pigmented epithelium with the rods and cones in it. You're going to find the highest concentration of rods and cones in the fovea centralis, with lots of cones inside and the rods around the outside. Then we have the optic nerve, which comes out of the back of the eye, and right in front of that, where the optic nerve attaches to the retina, is a blind spot. I think I talked about everything. Oopsies. Okay, so the cornea, the lens, the vitreous humor, they all help to focus light on the retina. So the light rays are going to be bent first by the cornea into the pupil and then by the lens onto the fovea centralis. And what this means is that the image that is projected onto the back of your eye is actually like upside down. And then your brain has to flip it right side up again. And that is just an adaptation that our brain has. And they actually did this experiment with a bunch of people where they got them to wear a set of glasses that flipped everything upside down. So everything that they were seeing when they were wearing these glasses was upside down. And that was because the image, obviously in the real world, is right side up. And then the glasses flipped it upside down. And then your eye flipped it right side up again. And then your brain flipped it upside down again. So they were seeing everything upside down. And then after wearing those glasses for about 2 weeks, their brain adapted and stopped flipping the image. And so then they were wearing these glasses that does flip the image upside down, and they were still seeing everything right side up. And they took the glasses off, so they just had their normal eyeballs looking around again, and everything that they were seeing was upside down for about a week until their brain actually adjusted again to kind of start flipping things upside down again. So it is a really unique adaptation that our brain has, and it is able to adapt in like 1 to 2 weeks of like, should I be flipping this image upside down or should I not be flipping this image upside down? So it's really interesting how well our brains work. Okay, so the optic nerve fibers that leave the back of the eye are carrying the information from the photoreceptors through the thalamus, and then it actually goes to the occipital lobe of the brain, where it processes that information, can also relate that info to other areas of the brain, like the parietal and frontal lobes. And then again, the brain does flip the image, so it perceives it right side up, and kind of converts everything we see into 3D images, and allows us to interpret things like depth. Images from the left field of vision do stimulate the right side of the retina in both eyes. So those impulses from the right half of the retina then go to the right side of the occipital lobe. So that means that the right side of the occipital lobe is interpreting information from the left field of vision, and then the opposite is true for your left field of vision. So this is kind of what I'm talking about here. So if you look at this like green button or whatever that is, this is what you're interpreting. It is in, you know, the right field of vision for this brain. So it's going to be stimulating the left side of the retina, which then gets interpreted by the left side of the brain. And anything on the other field of vision, on the left field of vision, gets interpreted by the left side of the retina, and then that goes to the left side of the brain to be interpreted. Okay, the last thing I want to do is one more diagram. Okay, so this is another image of the eye. It could look like this. It could look like this. They're both kind of the same. Don't be confused about where the optic nerve is coming out of the back of the eye exactly. But the outermost layer here is the sclera. Then this middle layer here that has all the stripes is the choroid layer, which supplies blood to the retina. Then this innermost layer that goes all the way around here is the retina. The optic nerve comes in the back of the eye. Right here, where the optic nerve connects to the retina, would be the blind spot. This little divot here would be the fovea centralis. And this space in the middle is filled with the vitreous humor. Then at the front of the eye, we have on the outside here, the cornea. Behind that, you have the aqueous humor, that fluid-filled area. Then these two little spots that are coming in right here is the iris. Again, that controls how much light is going to come in through this opening right here, which is the pupil. Behind that, we have the lens, which is bending the light towards the fovea centralis. And on either side of the lens, you have the ciliary muscle, which controls what you're focusing on. Okay, so that is the eye.